Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Ask the Experts, an award-winning daily series from 8:30 to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments of the live feed. If you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. During the live session, we'll be running a poll, so please do engage with it, and I'll reveal the results at the end. And make sure you registered for the QuickBooks free annual conference, QuickBooks Connect. Look out for the link in the chat. Taking place virtually on the 9th and 10th of March, the event brings entrepreneurs, small business owners, and accountants together to grow, learn, and connect. Morning, everyone. My name is Sean Goldsmith. For those of you guys who have not seen me on Ask the Expert before, I'm the co-founder of Grow Global, which is an international franchising consultancy. We currently work in 14 countries around the world. And we are absolutely and utterly dedicated to the world of franchising, both from a business point of view, but also from a belief in the model point of view. Franchising is a very, very important part of the UK economy, the world economy, in fact. And there's quite a lot of good that comes out of franchising. And that's kind of what I want to talk about this morning. So this morning, 1st February, is actually the very first day of the Love Franchising Month. Love Franchising is all about talking to people, whether yourselves or the broader community, all about the actual social impact that franchising makes to communities. And one of the things that led us to creating this campaign and rolling it out worldwide was a few conversations just with business people, in fact, business advisors, that were making assumptions and statements about franchising, which we didn't agree with, right? So we were having this wonderful chat with a gentleman who advises people who are over 45 on how to get into business and start their businesses. And he made this offhand comment and said, well, franchising is fantastic, but it's a pity it's got such a low success rate. And when we asked him what he meant by low success rates, he said, well, only 3% of franchises succeed. Well, I mean, actually, nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, in the 2018 survey, and there's a new survey coming out this year, just in the UK alone, the franchises were 93.7% likely to not only be in business still, but be profitable after 3 years, right? Which is in stark contrast to the world of independent sort of business. But franchising is quite an important part of what is going on in the world at the moment, because with globalization, especially how more and more very, very large businesses are emerging, they are dominating the scene. I mean, even businesses like Amazon that are doing fresh food and things like that are really making a big impact on the high street. And franchising can really play a big part in making sure that that's actually, that small independent businesses and local people are able to take the fight to these big companies because they're standing behind a big brand. Anyway, so I put together 5 reasons why everybody should love franchising. And these are facts that probably most people don't know. So hopefully I'll be able to add some meat to the bone, just give you a little bit more information. Please, as I said, ask any questions that you have about franchising, whether you want to franchise your business, whether it's about the impact of franchising in local communities. Absolutely happy to answer any questions. So here are my 5 great reasons to love franchising. So number 1, local brands make up to 50% of independent franchises. So most people don't know this, but franchising is incredibly diverse, right? When you speak about franchising, most people assume the quick service restaurant space. So they're thinking McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, those type of operations. And they'll be absolutely right, but that is only 1/4 of what franchising is. Every single day, every one of us come across franchising in the most normal kinds of ways. The plumbers, the people who teach your children how to dance when they're toddlers, rugby tots, rugby lessons. There is lawn cutting, there's window cleaning, there is pretty much anything that you can imagine. Virtual gaming arcades. All of these things are all part of franchising, but you wouldn't know it, because what happens with franchising is, although it's a very big brand and it's a national brand and everyone thinks about it, as I said, as McDonald's, what you don't realize is when a franchise is still building, when it's still growing, It doesn't have that national presence. What it does is it goes and it creates a brand presence in each of the territories that it comes across. So slowly, they build up a brand awareness and a brand presence across a country, but it happens one village at a time, one town at a time, one area at a time. Each of those franchisees are local people, and it's very important to understand this. They are people who are from the local community, right, who have decided to invest in better systems, better branding, better operational support, in order to be able to deliver a superior service to their clients, right? Makes a big difference going into business by yourself, but not alone, you know, and that's one of the big things about franchising. So fact number 2, franchises employ more and pay better. So a recent survey by Oxford University, or one of the divisions of the Oxford University, alongside the IFA, the International Franchising Association, found that franchises hire on average 13.6 local people for every franchise unit that's out there. And they pay on average 2.2 to 3.6% more than independent businesses. This is wonderful. You might think that it's not huge percentages, but it does make a significant difference, right? Remember, the other thing about franchising is it is one of the easiest routes to entry for many young people when it comes to business, right? So their first job quite often is in a McDonald's or in a franchise of some description. And when you consider the fact that franchising is much more likely to succeed on a local basis, right? So as we said before, 97.3% of franchises are in business and profitable after 3 years, right? What that means is there's a lot more stability for the employees. The franchisee is much more likely to employ. And even if they are nervous of employing, because employing people is a big and tough thing for any small business, what they have is the support and the HR and all of those kind of things behind them to give them the confidence to do it. So 13.6 people is not an insignificant number if you average that out over all the franchises that you might find in the UK and worldwide. So really important, statistic to think about. Right. As I mentioned before, my third point is that franchises are locally owned, which means that the resources, i.e. the profits, stay in the community and don't find themselves abroad. So think about a fundamental difference between a branch network and a franchise network. So what happens is in a franchise network, the franchisor provides intellectual property, the brand, the support, and all of those kind of things. And they do that in return for a royalty, or as in a management service fee that they call it here in Britain. So that is typically between 6% and call it 10%. Typically speaking. So what happens is that franchisee is out there, right? And the 6 to 10% is what actually goes back to the head office, right? Just as the royalty and for the support and all the other things that they are offered. And by the way, if you were to compare just commercially the support that is received within a franchise, if you were to go and actually pay for that independently, probably cost you 3 times as much, maybe even more. But anyway, so the franchise is there. It's a local person running a local business. It's their own limited company, right? They are living in the area. They're shopping in the area. They are buying their goods from the area, all of these things. Whereas if you have a branch network, typically speaking, right, what would happen is there would obviously be a big CEO in the head office. All of the branches are run by managers. All of the profits go to the head office to be distributed however they do it. The odds are if it's a big company, they probably are not locally based. So, they found an efficient location for tax purposes. So from a comparative point of view, what you have is an incredibly positive story around franchising compared to sort of single company owned branch networks, in my opinion. So point number 4. 65% of franchisees donate to local charities. Pretty impressive, actually, if you think about it, right? 6.5 out of 10 franchise businesses donate to local charities. And the average of this amount is 6% of their profits. So on average, 6% of their profits go into charitable giving, local charitable giving. This is pretty impressive, right? This is another reason why, you can be very confident in feeling that franchisee And this is even a directive from the head office, right? Franchisees want to get involved in their community. They are part of their community. They are, as I said before, small businesses within the local community. The only thing that differentiates them really from any other small business is this big brand, right? And is that support network. And there might be 10 franchisees in total in a network, but equally there might be 3,000 franchisees in a network. But they are all small independent businesses that are locally owned in the vast majority of cases. Right, so let's get on to point number 5. So franchise supply chains are structured to support the local community. Now, this is important. Think about it, right? Now, compare big branch network to a franchise, right? Could you say the same thing? Franchise supply chains are structured to support the local economy. Over 1/3 of franchises purchase at least 25% of their goods locally. Now think about it. You might think that 1/3 of franchises supporting, purchasing their goods locally is pretty small, but it actually, in fact, isn't. If you consider, what the franchises are, if you consider the fact that only 1/3 of franchises are actually restaurants, and so it's a very, very significant number, right? And if they're purchasing at least 25% of their goods locally, that's an impressive number. If you run a shop, are you able to say exactly the same thing? Do you purchase your goods locally, or do you need to go and buy internationally or nationally from the wholesalers, wherever it might be? But are you buying over 25% of your stock locally? These are all questions that are answered within franchising and not necessarily in independent businesses, just purely because franchising is under that same umbrella, and there are the structures, etc., that are around it. Anyway, so love franchising. The one big issue that's existed for a very long time is this perceived danger around buying into a franchise, or what franchises are. And of course, this is one of those things that inevitably happen when there are 1 or 2 examples of companies that have not done things properly and not managed their customers' expectations properly, or even have not done well by their franchisees. There are cases like that. As with any other business, in the world, there are always cases like that. But the vast majority of franchises are good and honorable people. They are, as I said, absolutely embedded in their local community and dedicated to their local community. They send their kids to school in the local community, etc. So a very, very, very interesting dynamic that a franchise has with the local community. So if you're a business that's actually looking to start a franchise, if you think about it, right, what you're doing is you're replicating yourself. So franchises, generally speaking, started as small businesses, didn't they? They started as small independent, people who decided that they were going to try and expand their business. Now, there's no doubt that franchising offers a very efficient and cost-effective way of expanding a business, because what you're doing is, in return for your intellectual property, the methodologies, the training, etc., what somebody is doing is they're paying you money to be part of that. But thank heavens for that, right? Because when they go out and they start their business, right, they've got you at their shoulder. You, a local person who has gone through all the trials and tribulations, gone through all the hassle, all the challenges, the licensing that might have come around, etc., right? So they've immediately got an experienced mentor and partner to help them start their local business in their local community, right? Again, think about it, right? If you were to get that independently, a local mentor, a business, coach, the odds that they have been in your industry, right, to stand side by side with you as you develop your business is very, very low. Their knowledge might be extensive, right, in terms of other industries, and their theoretical knowledge of your sector and your particular challenges that you have could be exceptional. However, they are not necessarily the kind of people who, they're not necessarily the people who have walked in your shoes, right? Or at least have put some footsteps ahead of you so that you can follow in their wake and avoid all the challenges that they've faced. So all in all, if you think about it, right, franchising is one of the best sort of local methods of starting a business, one of the last things that I probably want to say is like, and this is just an opinion that I've kind of developed over the years, looking at franchising from a philosophical point of view, is in this world of huge big brands, right, where they're consolidating everything, they're buying up businesses left, right, and center, and really dominating the world. These big companies, right, are undergoing a process, in my view, right, of very quickly automating and replacing humans with technology. I've seen it myself. I've worked, I've had clients like Amazon and those kind of guys, and the technology in their warehouses just unbelievable, right? Not very many humans around anymore. Certainly aren't the 800 that we once had working in an Amazon warehouse, right? So what happens is with a franchise, all of a sudden a small business has the opportunity, by standing together, by unifying behind a single brand, they've got an opportunity to actually stand shoulder to shoulder and take on these big corporations, right? Because it's big brand versus big brand. The difference is with franchising, it's a brand, it's a big brand made up of loads and loads of local people, right? Loads and loads of local people that are simply building businesses to feed their families, give their families a good life, right? And build something that they can be proud of, right? Now, I'm not saying that doesn't exist within corporates and the people that work within corporates, etc. But really, when it comes to supporting local and small, what franchising does is it allows even the smallest individual to punch way above their weight in small business. Anyway, I'm going to go over to questions, and I'm sorry for rambling on, but I'm very passionate about this subject. I think franchising is great, as you can tell. Right, so we are going to go. So asked on a previous Ask the Expert show, Dave on Instagram, DM. Hey, Sean, I'm interested to know what your biggest learning was from 2021. For me, it's the continued focus on being flexible with my team and helping pull everyone through whatever gets thrown at us next after a pretty tough 12 months. Dave, I've got to be honest. I think you're completely right. I run a mastermind group with about 450 odd franchisors at the moment within it. So we've seen all of the trials and tribulations, right? For some franchises, for some businesses, this was an absolutely brilliant opportunity. So in the halfway through lockdown, we were talking to a brand called Little Kickers football classes, and the founder there was saying to us, the one thing that COVID gave to them was the ability to be able to look at all their systems and upgrade them, right? Because all their classes were closed. They could do nothing else but actually, for the first time, take a look at everything that they had and say, right, is this correct? Can we make changes? Can we make them now? Because once the business is running again, once everything is going at 1,000,000 miles an hour, very difficult to make these fundamental changes. Support of employees has been absolutely key. And I think that really employees in many, many ways have stepped up. Franchisees certainly have. The relationships between the franchisee and the franchisor, I've never seen closer. They've really supported each other. And, in the vast majority of cases, I've got to tell you that the franchisors, when lockdown happened, they completely stopped all royalty payments, etc., to help their franchisees. But remember, franchisor pays, feeds their family with the royalties and the management service fees, etc. That is their turnover. That is the product that they sell. So they stop charging that too. So it's difficult for everybody. But honestly, they were resilient. They were amazing. They were positive. They stood together. The industry came together, and it was just a beautiful thing to see, to be honest with you. Anyway, I hope that answers the question, Dave. Just before I move on, I think that, I don't think that we should, I think we should understand that after every difficult period, right, sometimes there's an even more difficult period. So these next 12 months, I don't think are going to be sunshine and roses for everybody, because there's going to be a lot of adapting, especially as the world starts trying to get back into a form of normality. And the other thing is that there's going to be a lot more businesses out there, people from redundancies, et cetera, et cetera. So the competition will be high. So prepare yourself, be positive. I think 2022 is going to be fantastic. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I do think it's going to be good. So good luck with it. Anyway, Larry on Twitter DM, is there any value to buying a franchise that's failed I feel confident I could help turn it around, but recognize that there's lots of risk involved. What should I make sure I have? Larry, honestly, the thing is, if you look at the rest of the franchise network, go and speak to some of the guys who are doing okay, right? The guys who are right in the middle of the network, the average guys. Speak to the guys who are right at the top, and make your decision based on their experience, right? In my experience, quite often the reason that franchises might fail is literally just because it's usually a personal thing, right? So if a franchise network generally is doing well, the one branch or one franchisee kind of fails, often it's because they came in with the wrong idea. I've seen it so many times, and I know I might take a battering for this, but I have seen it where the franchisee gets incredibly creative, right? They refuse to follow the model as the franchisor kind of lays it out. Because sometimes what the franchisor does is they tell you the right way to do it, but the right way is not necessarily the one that's going to, create the quickest turnover. So you've got to be patient, and you've got to stand your ground. You've got to keep doing what the franchisor says in order to get the momentum. And let me tell you, if you speak to the other franchisees, especially the successful ones, universally, right, in almost every franchise that I've worked with, and I've worked with a lot, the franchisees will always say, I just followed the system. I just followed the system. I just followed the system. That's what they did. So going in and buying a failed franchise, right, doesn't necessarily say the business failed, right? It could have been 1,000 other things, but more than likely, it is something that the franchisee, didn't manage to do. Sometimes just being in business just wasn't the right thing for them. So yeah, I mean, take a look at it, but make your decision based on the rest of the network. Don't worry too much about the territory itself, if you know what I mean. Good. So let's just go to Ali on Facebook Messenger over here. So my business is both B2B and B2C in approach. Should we have different branding and personas for both? We are targeting hotels, but also customers, so they're very different audiences. Ali, the thing is, I don't know what business you're in, but franchising does exactly the same thing if you think about it, right? So every franchisor, sells to, tries to sell their franchise. So in terms of the business model, etc., it is completely B2B. So that is franchise sales, but at the very same time, what they're doing is they're selling burgers. So many franchisors, depending on who they are, they might, if you think about McDonald's, right? So McDonald's, there's going to be a little link over there somewhere for the B2B, which is the franchise sales, and then the majority is going to be consumer sales. But I think that probably about 50% of franchisors have completely different websites for exactly the same reason that you're talking about. I don't think necessarily that different branding is the thing that you're after, but certainly different wording, just to be able to speak to your audience properly. I hope that helps. If you want to, more than happy to take a look at your website and just give you some pointers. I've recently been working with a very big franchise brand in London. And just over the course of a month, just a few bits and pieces of copy changes have completely turned around, the number of leads that have come in. So happy to help you with that. Right, Hugo on Twitter DM. My brand is starting to get noticed a lot online, but the majority of interest is outside the UK. Is it worth finding overseas franchisees, or is there another way I can make the most of it? Hugo, absolutely. I mean, I actually know some especially children's brands that are much, much bigger outside of the UK than they are in the inside. And for that exact same reason, they just started getting all of their leads through the international side of things. So yes, absolutely. You can absolutely do it. However, I would probably say to you that, again, if you want to contact me, there's reasons sometimes, right? And there's sometimes just a very, very, very subtle angle or communication change that'll make your success in the UK as good as the international. But there's absolutely no problem with going international if your business is sound and you've got the working capital. The one thing to consider with franchising, obviously, is that many countries have pretty strict laws when it comes to franchising. The UK is one of the last bastions of unregulated franchising. So this is part of the reason why we have a bit of trouble with some rogue franchisees out there, or franchisors at least, could I say. It's because there is no regulation here in the UK. I'd be more than happy just to take a squiz over your stuff, give you a good idea. As I said, I work in 14 countries. I'll probably give you some decent advice as to what you can do. Right, okay. Let's see over here. We've got Matteo on Instagram. I'm looking at angel and VC investments, but will potentially have losses for the foreseeable future in exchange for rapid growth of my business. Do I have any other options for funding? Matteo, I think that's really just depends on the actual business that you're in. So as I said to you before, in franchising, right, what you typically have is you have a situation where your expansion is actually funded via franchise sales. So in many cases, what will happen is a business will be fairly well established, but what they want is they want a presence, in different areas, and I know that local people are able to create that growth much more rapidly. Now, I've seen franchises go from 5 franchises to something like 300 in a matter of a year and a half. So your expansion through franchising can be very, very, very rapid. But I'm guessing that if you're looking at VC investment, you're probably in some form of tech, because that is kind of the space that most VCs are playing in at the moment. Angel investments is obviously great, but I think that's probably the best advice I can give at this stage, in terms of the different funding options. I've done quite a lot of this in the past. So 2.5 years ago, I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley speaking to a lot of the VCs. So I don't think that VCs from that point of view are necessarily all that fussed with the profitability. What they are really concerned about is actual, what the potential of the business is. So yeah, if you can just take a look and speak to some of these guys first. But if it is franchising that's gonna be helpful to you, just feel free to contact me in the end. Right, guys, the poll results are in, and we asked you, given a choice, would you start a business on your own or with a franchise? 60% of you said on your own, and 40% of you answered with a franchise. That's really, really interesting, and I think that is just about right. I'm actually surprised that so many of you will start with a franchise, but I applaud you for it, because as I said before, as a route to market, there is no safer way. If you manage to be successful with your own independent business, I mean, that's wonderful, because that's the route that most franchisors started at. That's how they got into franchising initially. So yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. Anyway, guys, thank you all for tuning in. If you want to get in contact with me, you can email me on Sean, SEAN, @growglobal.com. That's GROE global.com. Or visit our website, www.growglobal.com, GROEglobal.com. Coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow is Judith Dugdale, accountant and head of digital solutions at MHA, Moore and Smalley. Tune in to learn how to maximize the value of your business. A reminder that if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. Really enjoyed answering your questions. Have a wonderful day, and please remember, all of you should just love franchising.